I do feel that health and fitness is at its strongest, but it's most divided. The point is not to have a cool after photo. The point is to have an after photo, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, 10 years after, right? And you don't get that unless you learn to address the underlying issue. Coaching is just mindset and psychology, right? Like, give the plan, give the training. Great. It's not going to solve anything if you have a bad relationship with food, because you're not going to stick to the plan. So we need to figure out why you struggle to stick to the plan. That would be a difference in size between muscle and fat. And on the scale, if you were to lose 5 pounds of fat and put on 5 pounds of muscle, it would show a 0 pound difference. And you'd be like, damn, I'm not making progression. Like, nah, you've put on a good amount of muscle.
What does it mean to truly take care of your health? To build a body not just for aesthetic, but for strength, longevity and function. To step away from short-term fixes and create something that actually lasts. This is the mission of Maxime Sigouin, an elite fitness coach, entrepreneur and thought leader, dedicated to helping 1 million people transform their health by 2050. It's a bold goal, but one rooted in something deeper than just sets and reps, calories and macros. Maxime isn't just talking about fitness, he's talking sustainable change, the psychology of transformation, and how we can really reshape not only just our bodies, but the way in which we see ourselves. His journey is unconventional, modeling as a young man, experiencing firsthand the pressures of body image, and ultimately breaking away from quick fix culture to embrace a holistic, sustainable approach to fitness. And now he's on a mission to do the same. In today's episode, we're diving deep into body recomposition, how to lose fat, build muscle, and actually sustain it. The skinny fat dilemma, what it is, why it happens, and how to change it. The power of whole food, plant-based nutrition. Really looking into longevity, performance, and recovery. We take a look at the psychology of lasting change and why most people fail, and how to break free from that cycle. Society's relationship with food, Ozempic quick fix culture, and the future of fitness. Because this is more than just looking good. It's about feeling strong, empowered, and in control. It's about rethinking and reframing everything we've been taught about fitness and nutrition, and rebuilding it from the ground up. So if you're tired of unsustainable diet plans, frustrated with the lack of progress, or just curious about what it really takes to build a strong, resilient body, this one's for you. Let's get into it. Before we dive in, if I can ask you one favor, only one small favor, if you could like, subscribe, share, or give a star rating on whatever the platform you choose to listen on allows you to do. It makes the world of difference to me, it makes a world of difference to the podcast, and allows me to bring the conversations you want and the guests you've been asking for. It's a small little gesture that makes the world of difference. But here's Maxime Sigouin. Let's dive in. Peace and plants. Maxime, welcome. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me on. Excited to be here and happy we were able to make it happen. We've been like rescheduling a few times, and so I apologize for the last time. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, I'm glad you're here. I actually came across you a few years back when actually Robert Cheek mentioned you and what you were doing. And at that point, I was kind of blown away by the numbers which he told me that you were trying to help, which was 10,000 people. And that was by 2033? And then 1 million now by 2050. Like, they are wildly big numbers.
Yeah, we're somewhat on track for them. So it's been a good exercise of like, how do we make that happen? You know?
How long ago did you actually come up with those numbers, and kind of how far along are we now? Because what is it, like 7 years till 2033? 6 years? 27 years?
On April 1st, it's 5 years that the business exists since I've created it. So 5 years ago, I came up with those numbers, and it was just a little bit before my late partner passed away, which is the whole origin story of how I got into the space and doing the work that I do. And the 10,000 just seemed like such a big number, right? For someone that had never run the business before or has never created anything of this size that we have now, I was like, it just feels wild to have 10,000 people by 23 of like lives impacted. And then along the way I added, I'm like, oh shit, we're going to we're going to reach that. I'm like, I need a bigger goal. I was like, 1 million people. And my mentor was like, by what timeline? I was like, we'll probably stretch it out a little bit further. I'm like, let's say 2050. And as we're progressing, man, it kind of feels somewhat doable in the long run with the things that we have planned and that we have going on. So, and right now I think we're nearing 1,100 people in 5 years, but it's been exponential every single year. And I wholeheartedly believe that with some of the projects that we have in store and how we're keeping track of that number of people, we'll hit 10,000 in the next year and a half.
That's incredible. So if you actually reach before 2050, 1 million, does then that number then move further up?
Yeah, we'll see once we get there. Right? It's like, let's land on the moon and see what we do once we're there. But yeah, it's just, again, it's a fun, impactful goal that I've set for myself that I know would force me to become a different version of who I am to be able to have that level of impact. And so once we get there, who knows, what other projects, nonprofit we're going to have in place to kind of serve more people.
That's amazing. I'm absolutely in support of that because I think, especially right now, health and fitness, I think, is probably at its strongest point. Like through all cultures and trends and dietary tribes, I feel like, especially since I'd say 2020, people are looking more in towards health and fitness and how they do it.
Yeah.
And I do feel like some people, though, still don't know how to go about it as well. So like there's that effort there. There is people trying to, but it is still a work in progress, although it's such a big thing at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's at its strongest, but it's most divided with all the different, if you want to call them, religions of nutrition and kind of how to do things, right? I don't want to say I'm in the vegan, whole food, plant-based space, but I do feel that health and fitness is at its strongest, but it's most divided amongst the world for sure.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, I don't think it's due to, lack of information, because I think, you go online, you can find all the information, but it's then the heightened misinformation, disinformation, or false narratives surrounding how to be fit and healthy. Look, you can look at like the carnivore movement, for instance, and that's taken its whole kind of, I don't think I ever expected to take off as much as it had, or I don't know if I'm just seeing a lot more of it, so I assume it's bigger than it actually is. It's kind of hard to work out.
Yeah, well, I was just on a vegan cruise with Cyrus Gambata, from co-founder of Mastering Diabetes, and we talked about that, how like that movement gained so much steam, and I think it's because it's an extreme version of what people were already doing, right? It's always been the conversation of like bacon and steak and butter, like all the stuff that people don't want to cut. And then this whole movement was just like, hey, let's just make all those things the main thing. And then everyone was like, this is great. This is my best life. I get to eat steak and bacon and butter all day long. And people are having more health issues, but whatever. They just embrace that like extreme side of like, just all the foods you like, just eat more of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I do wonder what that's going to look like in a few years. But then there's you that's kind of breaking through that noise at the moment, literally molding people into their goals with a whole foods plant-based diet and actually having sustainable results. So I guess for those who don't know who you are, who is Maxime? And I think more so, what's kind of taking you on this route to this mission?
Yeah. Before I get into that, I just got a comment about the carnivore thing. Like, whole food plant-based has been around for a long time, way longer than you and I have been alive. Carnivore is brand new. So I don't think it's going to last that long. Like if whole food plant-based is bad for you, it would have shut down.
Data points. We have so many data points on whole foods plant-based, and there's 0 data points on carnivore.
Yeah, you don't know the impact in like a decade or two, basically, that it's going to have. So yeah, just one thing to say, it's brand new and people can say whatever they want, but they literally have no idea, basically. So yeah, who am I? Yeah, Maxime Sigouin. I was, born and raised in Quebec, Canada, on a farm. We had chickens, we had cows. We killed our own chicken for meat. We, had a ton of eggs. We sold eggs. I don't come from the vegan world, so Robert and I have a very similar story of growing up on a farm. And when I was about like, I grew up really skinny. I turned and I became a bodybuilder, so I bulked up to be about 240 pounds. Just for context, I'm 6'4". So I got like 100 some kgs or something. And so I got real big, real strong. I got recruited to do high fashion modeling. And the agent saw me. She's like, I see something under those big chubby cheeks. I believe there's a jawline under there. but you need to lose a significant amount of weight because you don't fit in anything of the clothing. And I was like, well, I worked so hard to be this big, you know? I was like, all right, you know what? And I just like, let me just give this a shot. I went home, I went on Google. I'm like, what diet's going to get me the skinniest, the fastest? And vegan came up. It said vegans are skinny and weak. I was like, well, I don't like the idea of being weak, but I need to be skinny. And so the next day I went vegan. So I went from eating a dozen eggs for breakfast, 3 chicken breasts per meal for 5 additional meals per day. So 15 chicken breasts a day with a dozen eggs for breakfast. So the next day I was eating a bowl of frozen blueberries, bananas, and dates. And that meal was over a decade ago. So I've been vegan for over a decade. I managed to drop 80 pounds. I managed to get skinny enough to fit in those darn clothes that they should make bigger anyways. I worked in New York. I worked in Milan, Italy. I was able to have like a fun career in that space. And then traveled around the world, met my late partner who got diagnosed with breast cancer within 3 months of us dating. I was about 22 at the time when she got diagnosed. And I was her caregiver for the next 5 years until I was 27, until she passed away. And that's kind of what triggered me to start this whole journey and this whole project of Fit Vegan, which the intention is to help people not end up in her position ultimately, because her cancer was purely lifestyle related. There was no genetic component to it. And it was purely out of like abusing caffeine, living on protein bars, lack of sleep, and just hustling all the time. And I was like, man, I need to help people not end up in that spot. And so I believe in the power of whole food plant-based eating. I believe in the power of exercise and somewhat of like balance and not say stress-free environment, because I don't think we can achieve that in this day and age, but having less stress in your life and being able to manage yourself a bit better. And that's kind of what brought me in this place now.
So you're kind of keeping those kind of pillars of health, which is very much the exercise, the good sleeping, the healthy eating habits, and anything else that really trying to de-stress your life, just to make sure that you're making your body as bulletproof as possible.
Yeah, I like to use the analogy of a seatbelt. So if you get into a car accident with a seatbelt, you're not guaranteed to not die, but you have a less chance of dying versus if you don't have a seatbelt on. So to me, eating whole food plant-based, prioritizing your sleep, your mental health, eating whole food plant-based is just putting that seatbelt on, right? An extra layer of security.
If it wasn't for that modeling agent telling you to lose weight and then you're going on that kind of journey to veganism down that route, do you think you would be to where you are now?
Absolutely not. No, I was 100% on the path of like, I want to be as big and strong as possible. And I was 240, and I probably would have I was on a path of trying to go up to 280 pounds at 6'4". Like I grew up very insecure, being bullied for my size because I was 6'4" at like 13 years old. I was shaped like a spaghetti noodle. I was so skinny. So I was like, oh, getting bigger muscles will solve all my problems. We all kind of all go through that phase when we're younger. And then, so I probably would have continued down that path, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think very much everybody at a young age is very much that kind of, hey, like all my issues would sort out if I had bigger muscles, if they looked different, if I was a different shape, different size, everything would be sorted. But that's not always the case. That's just it's very much in our heads at that point. But I totally understand where you're coming from, because I went through similar situations. However, not as tall. If anything, a lot shorter.
Most people aren't. It's fine. We're a giant family, man. My dad is 6'8". My mom's like 5'10", 5'11". All my brothers are above 6 feet. Like we're just a tall family.
So you looked up vegan and was like, hey, we're just going to switch overnight. And it was in like frozen berries. What did that whole kind of like transition look like for you? Because obviously, as you said, you were eating like chicken breasts and eggs, but then you have to kind of find your way to how to eat a healthy vegan lifestyle as well. Because obviously at this point, although these foods are nutritious, they're not kind of like nutritious enough to keep you going and keep you optimized as fully as possible, and or to especially how you are now.
Yeah, I definitely eat very different than how I ate back then. To be honest with you, like health wasn't even a concern at that point, because I was still young and dumb enough to be like, I'm invincible, I can do whatever I want, and then I won't get sick. So honestly, like I ate the same thing for almost 4 years, like throughout my whole bodybuilding and powerlifting career, which was literally a dozen eggs for breakfast. And basically, it was 8 egg whites, 4 full eggs, a cup of oatmeal, peanut butter, and some blueberries. And then after I had 4 meals extra per day, which was a cup of rice, like 2, 3 chicken breasts, and some broccoli with some hot sauce. I did the same shit every day for 4 years. And then when I transitioned to veganism, I was like, okay, now the goal was to build muscle as much as possible. Now my goal was to lose as much muscle as possible because I was too big for the clothes. Like I had some body fat on me at 240, but I had a lot of muscle mass that was preventing me from fitting in like a medium shirt, like a small medium shirt. I was like an extra large. So it was a significant downsize that needed to happen. So I was like, well, what do I know about building muscle? Well, I need to consume a certain amount of protein. I need to strength train and do minimal cardio. I was like, great, let's just do the opposite of that. Let's severely undereat. Let's eat as little protein as possible. Let's stop strength training and do as much cardio as possible. And in that 1 year, I lost 80 pounds. And a lot of that was lean muscle, which was the purpose of it, basically. So I didn't worry too much about like what I was eating. I was just eating fruits and veggies because I'll be honest with you, no one in my family was vegan. We were farmers. So it was not a conversation in the household. So all I knew is I couldn't eat the majority of the food that was in the fridge. And then I would look at what was left. I was like, well, there's fruits and there's veggies. I didn't think about like grains and nuts and seeds and, you know, all those other things. I was like fruits and veggies. I ate fruits and veggies for a very long time. And then again, I'm not saying for anyone to do this, very unhealthy because I was severely in a calorie deficit. But eventually I started to do more research online. I stumbled about, porks over knife. And then I was like, oh, shit, quinoa, rice, those are foods I can eat. And so I kind of became more open to some of those other foods. And then after about a year, when I had lost all the weight, then I started to structure things a little bit better and eat like a normal vegan, quote unquote.
Did you see any of those kind of benefits that you see a lot of people? Because a lot of people, when they do switch over, they either see benefits or they just see nothing. They just kind of like lose weight. But some people have these miraculous, like, you know, athletic performances go up, or like they start breathing properly, or there's multiple kind of like issues that get alleviated. That's not to say that's going to happen to everyone, but I think especially when people go from a very meat heavy diet.
Yeah, for sure. I did have a few things that shifted. One of them is it was funny because I didn't know I was congested. So like my nose started to clear up, and I was like, I can breathe better. But the thing is, I didn't know I couldn't breathe properly because I had been like that my whole life. So then I was like, oh shit, like I can breathe better. The other one was the just fogginess in my brain and tension in my forehead. Just all of a sudden, when I was in school, I had such a hard time focusing. And to be fair, I thought I was dumb. I just didn't get periods. I couldn't focus or anything. And then I started eating vegan, and then my forehead tension went away and the fogginess went away. And it's kind of like I gain access to an extra like 30-40% of my brain. And I was like, damn, I'm actually smart. This is great. And then I was like, I don't want to go back because I remember how dumb I felt. And I was like, man, my brain is so much sharper. And so like those were the two biggest things that I saw. In terms of gut health, because I didn't do it properly, I had a hard time because I literally went from minimal amounts of fiber to like 50, 60 grams overnight a day. So I definitely had some like bloating and gasiness issue. Now I know to like work people into it, but I didn't know that back then. There wasn't as many resources as there are today.
Yeah, I was very similar in that sense, where I did do also an overnight transition. However, didn't really think too much into how to navigate things like fiber. So going from a meat heavy diet to very much literally grains, beans, legumes, and everything, and all of a sudden just kind of like bashing my body as much as possible in like the space of a week, to the point I was like, I don't know what's going on. I don't feel too great at the moment. However, it did start getting better over time. But that first week or so, I was very uncomfortable.
Yeah, well, you're getting way more fiber than me because I wasn't even doing beans and stuff, which just like way more fiber than the fruits and veggies I was eating. So yeah, you must have had a real hard time.
At the moment, there's obviously clearly a big movement to be fit and healthier. Even if we look at the Maha movement, not that I like to use that word, but especially in America, like although I think from a nutrition standpoint, they are going the wrong way about it. The thought is there that they want to be, healthier. People want to be healthier. And there's obviously a urge to change people's behavioral patterns and exercise more. But do you actually, because when we look at the world as it is now, and especially with how you are cultivating your practice and business, do you have hope that, especially, I would say, especially in America, where like obviously things are a lot worse, especially health wise,
Yeah.
that you do like I think it's 1 in 2 people now are obese. I think. Do you
Probably.
think that there is the with health and fitness becoming at the forefront as well, sleep, that there is like hope for the future of this kind of like being reversed, especially in how you're seeing it with the work that you do?
I think it's interesting because you said like the 1.5 is going to be obese. Like I wouldn't be shocked that would be like the stat. I know that it was like what, like 3/4 of people wouldn't qualify for military tests if ever U.S. had to go to war. Like 3/4 of people, like it would be fit people like me that would be screwed. Like, well, I'm Canadian, so I'm kind of fine. But if you're an American and you're fit,
you
you're
can
kind of
jump over
going
the
to
border.
war. Yeah, exactly. Like, ciao, guys. So it's funny because like the stats are showing that more people are overweight. But like we just talked about, I feel like fitness is gaining momentum and has a louder voice, right? And I think obviously there's the amplification of social media and the fact that we have access to watching people around the world makes it feel like it's more popular. And I'm sure it is to a certain extent. But yeah, definitely more people are getting sick and more overweight and kind of obese. From what I've seen from, from coaching people, like one thing I've learned is that it's not about the meal plan and the workout program. Like obviously creating a vegan meal plan, whole food plant-based, strength plan, like that's fairly easy to do. You hire a coach wherever and kind of get that happen. But the real issue is compliance with the plan, right? It's not because you have a meal plan, a training plan, that magically you start to melt fat and be healthier. Like you actually have to do and implement the implementation. And I think what gets a lot of people to take action, unfortunately, is when they get to a place where there's enough pain to make them want to change. And I think that a lot of people are starting to hit that rock bottom for themselves to want to make those changes. But I think that a lot of people have a really, how can I say that? Like a really high tolerance to pain, where they're going to have to go real deep in terms of how painful and how out of shape they have to be before they want to make a change, which I think is unfortunate. Right? Like people don't stop smoking until they get diagnosed with lung cancer, right? They're like, oh, I should probably change something at this point. It's like, yeah, no shit. Now you got to recover from having cancer, right? Like it's a lot harder than prevention. You should just not smoke in the first place. So I think like it is human nature to want to change when there's enough pain to give it a reason to change. And that's why there's people like you and I and other people that have shows, which is kind of enlighten people of like, hey, you can eat this way, you don't have to go down this path and blah, blah, blah. But I think it is human nature to have to touch the fire to realize that it hurts instead of like being told to not touch the fire, because people have to experience it themselves a little bit.
Everybody wants to change when it is too late because it's not sexy to change for a lot of people. They'll be like, I want the fast food, because our
convenience.
Unfortunately, our taste buds have kind of been changed to desire that instead of plant foods, for instance, or just healthier foods in general. So we kind of been set up to fail until like it gets to like the worst part, whether that be smoking, eating healthy. As soon as you're diagnosed with something that could potentially be life threatening, then people don't want to change instead of making those early shifts earlier on. And not saying you have to be like 100% healthy constantly. I mean, I'm still not like I enjoy pizza once in a while and like
I had some vegan wafers before this call. Like, hey, it's fine.
It's just having that balance, and I think people overlook that you can have balance because it's like I think it's very much people are like, hey, it's either full in or you're full out. Like there's no in between.
Yeah, two things to that. I literally just I did like a kind of like a call-in show on YouTube on Thursday mornings where people just jump on. And I was talking to this lady, she's 72. And she was so like, it's like, I'm all in or nothing. I'm like, yeah, if you learn to live in the gray zone between like black and white, if you learn to live in the gray zone, you have such an incredible life. If you have a healthy relationship with food, it's going to be so much easier to navigate life. Because then people, if they're not like no junk food in the house. They're exercising 1 hour every day. And if they miss one day, they go like, well, I screwed it up. Let me just go on the other side and eat, pizza and cake every day, not work out for the next 2 months. It's like, you can like have vegan pizza or have vegan chocolate wafers and be like, all right, cool. This was great. I'm just going to eat a proper meal for my next meal, right? We have this saying, win the next meal, win the next workout. So even if you go on like a massive binge, which I have several crazy stories for, like eating donuts out of trash can. Like I've done some weird shit with food. Like even if you do that, you eat a whole box of donuts, I'll just be like, great, hope you had a good time. Just eat your dinner. Like you don't need to beat yourself up for it. Just get back on track with it. And the other component to that, and I think the issue with like the all or nothing is people are not consciously creating their environment. So I consider myself to be someone that's like really disciplined, but I know that I'm lazy. Like, so if people look at me externally, they're like, you're doing all these podcasts and running all these businesses, doing all these things. Like, I'm lazy. I'm just very efficient and I create an environment where it's easy for me to do the right thing. So if you put me, who's hyper disciplined and somewhat lazy, into a household where all there is junk food and where there's like freaking TVs in every room and everyone every day tells me that I suck and then I can't do anything and I'll never succeed, guess what? I'll probably put on 40 pounds in the next 6 months too. You know what I mean? Like we're human after all. So I was like, okay, how do I put myself in an environment where people aren't talking shit about me and I have a supportive community? All right, great. Let's take care of that. Okay, second, my environment in my house. How can I ensure that I get good sleep? Well, maybe let's not bring cell phones and computers into the bedroom, right? How can I ensure that I eat healthier food? Well, let's maybe make sure that we have some healthy food that's easily available for us in the fridge and there's no junk food right there. If you want junk food, like that's our rule. If you want junk food, we have to drive to the grocery store to get it. We cannot store it at the house. It can't be in the freezer. It can't be in the cupboards. People don't consciously create their environment. They just kind of let life happen to them. And they're like, well, there's frozen pizza in the freezer. There's vegan ice cream in the freezer. There's this chocolate bar. And I was like, again, nothing wrong with eating it. Just make sure you add some friction to getting it by having to drive to the grocery store, as an example.
I actually really relate to that, is the fact that I haven't ever heard it worded in that way, but very much I'm a lazy person, but an efficient lazy person.
Yeah.
But that is through years and years of habit building. If I didn't habit build, I'd still probably be laying in bed just eating junk and like not really exercising or moving too much. But yeah, I feel like it's one of those things that you have to compound that evidence over time to create the life and the way you need to live. So to make sure you don't become the person you don't want to be.
Yeah, that's another big part of transformation, is like, what identity do you want to have attached to yourself? So if you identify yourself as like lazy procrastinator, you're never able to get things done. Whenever you say you're going to do something, you never do it. You say you're going to eat healthy and you don't eat healthy. Like, you can choose to look at that from the negative side, or you can choose to look at it from the positive side. I was like, hey, I'm trying. I bought these things. I went for a walk today. I went for a workout today. Even I worked out once in the whole month. Like, you worked out once in a whole month. That's more than a lot of people. So like, how you're going to frame it for yourself to help shape your new identity is going to be super critical. Because, man, coming up to this point where I'm at today, I had choices to look at the dark side or the good side. They're trying to find the good in the dark side. And I was like, I have to focus on the good, because the rest is so much crap that like I won't be able to shape this new version of me if I do that.
I think one of the real big issues, though, is that people overlook simplicity, because simplicity is very much, whole foods are simple. Like whole foods and like eating healthy is very simple to do. However, and making those kind of choices, however, they don't have the same sex appeal. Like fast food and marketing and convenience isn't that's sexier than, throwing together, let's say a salad, for instance. Putting that all together takes seconds, but driving to a McDonald's drive-thru takes longer. But it's marketed to be the sexier thing than, sitting down with some like greens and some other bits and pieces.
Yeah, well, complexity is the enemy of execution. So especially when you talk to people wanting to transition to vegan or eating whole food plant-based. So when I say vegan, I'm saying like it can contain some processed food components, and like some of the vegan products exist. When I talk whole food plant-based, I like no processed foods. Like, I'm not always all whole food plant-based. Like, I'll go out for dinner with my wife and we'll travel, we'll try new foods. It's that element of making it convenient for yourself by having food that's readily available. And yeah, like you said, like it's pitched as simpler to go to the drive-through, but shit, gas, time, you gotta wait in line. Like it's not faster. You just, yeah, maybe there's less dishes you have to do at the end of it, but you can make great meals at home. There's great meal delivery services, like regardless of the country that you're in. If you go vegan meal delivery, you can find a great company that will deliver right to your house for cheaper than you eating out, actually. And I think people get too obsessed over trying to do vegan right. It's like, I need to make sure that I get all my micronutrients. I need to combine rice and beans. And I'm like, dude, you're having a PhD in building a meal. I'm like, just eat plants. Stop eating animal products. Just eat plants. You'll feel a lot better. Just even if the bean and rice aren't combined, you're going to be fine. You're going to survive.
Yeah, it is very much. I think myself, when first got into nutrition and studied that, I was very much I need to get every single micronutrient, every single nutrient to the exacts every single day, to then, you know, be the healthiest possible, not realizing that your body doesn't really work that way.
It's funny because like,
these things.
I hear that all the time. They're like, well, I can't do it right, so I'm not going to do it. So they're worried about not getting all their micronutrients and their vitamins. But they're like, screw it, I can't do it. And they freaking go to McDonald's and Burger King. Do you think you're hitting your freaking micronutrients there anyways? Like, you're so much better off having not all your vitamins and micronutrients than like eating a McDonald's burger, you know? Like, the alternative option that they have is just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think as well, we have it on both ends of the spectrum as well, because, you know, when people switch to a vegan lifestyle or a plant-centered lifestyle, then we also have a mixture of, you know, whole foods, plant-based, or you can go the other route completely, and that's like vegan junk food and overly processed things like, you know, Oreos. And while I'd say things like Beyond Meat or Impossible and all these plant-based meats are healthier than the meat version, they also aren't a health food, like, by any means. Like, yes, they're better than the animal product, but yet in no means are like a real replacement for, like, you know, tofu, tempeh, beans, whole foods. But once again, that's also just not a sexy thing that people want to hear. Like, nobody wants to sit there and be like, like, you know, beans and rice. It doesn't have the same pizzazz about it.
Yeah. And again, as much as I'm whole food plant-based and everything I've built is around whole food plant-based, I believe whole food, Beyond Meat, Impossible, those are great transitional tools. Like, if you can get, like, and I just say this for fun because we grew up kind of like rednecks. So if we grab like a redneck farmer to stop eating, you know, cows and eat a Beyond Burger, phenomenal win for the planet, for himself, and for the cow that didn't die for the burger. You know, so it's like, it is a great transitional tool. You know, Robert is good friends with the Beyond Meat people. And he's like, it's not a product for vegans. It's a product for people that don't want to go vegan, that just want to reduce the amount of meat they're going to be consuming. Like, hey, great for them. And there's obviously always going to be niches to eating vegan. There's going to be levels to it. So, you know, whole food plant-based, like, I'll have some from time to time, but that's pretty much it. But if I can get a farmer to stop, you know, eating steaks and eating Beyond Burger, that's a phenomenal win for everyone.
It's just one of those helping to transition foods. It's like the stepping stone foods that people need to kind of help them along the way, even if they're not going to go, you know, full whole food plant-based, or even if they're not going to go full vegan. Having more of those in a diet is still going to be significantly better than, you know, the alternative, which is, you know, going and having these antibiotic infused, hormonal infused, like cows, for instance. So, man,
the hormones in meat is wild. So when I was like 14-year-old, I look like a 14-year-old. 14-year-olds now look like men. Like, it's crazy. It's the women look like they're like 20 something, and it's like, it's crazy how much older they look.
I had this conversation the other day with somebody, but I was walked past and I was like, that guy, like, I found out this person was 15 years old and he had a beard. He was so muscular. And I was like, 15-year-olds looked really weird when I was younger. They just looked like 15-year-olds. Like, they look like babies still.
Yeah.
Now they look about 30.
It's crazy. Like, I don't know how old you are, but I'm gonna be 32 in a few months. Like, I still don't have 32. A beard. Yeah, there you go. I still don't have a beard at this age, and I stopped eating meat like over a decade ago. So I never got the little hormonal boost from the meat at that point. But it's wild how they look. It's crazy. I play basketball and I'll play with some of them and I'm like, oh dude, like you're pretty good for like your age, you know, because I think they're like around my age. Like I'm 19. I'm like, you're 19 years old. Like, what happened to you? It's like Captain America. They were in the capsule and they got super jacked at 19. It's crazy.
It's scary, and I don't know if that's like, if that is. I assume it's to do with what we're eating in the moment, like amount of hormones and things that are in them. Like, because I just don't assume that kind of in the space of, let's say, 10, 20 years, that people have developed that much that they just don't look like young people anymore. They're just kind of coming out the womb looking old. That's
Freaking Benjamin Button.
That thing doesn't happen. Evolution doesn't happen that quickly.
Yeah, it's Benjamin Button. It's literally what's going to happen. But they're not going to get younger, you know?
So if somebody is to come and work with you and, you know, wants to take on one of your plans, is it completely whole foods plant-based, or is there room to, you know, play around with, like, if somebody wants a bit of, like, you know, a Beyond Meat, or like, you know, something that's around there, or like if somebody's still halfway there and they're kind of like more plant-centered, more plant-forward, and they have like, they want that bit of fish, they want that bit of chicken because that's still transitioning. I'm guessing for you, like, in your mind, that's probably very unethical to stick that in there yourself, but allow people to do it.
Yeah, so we do work with people that want to transition, that are not fully there, that are still eating like fish, eggs, and chicken, that are eating Beyond Meat and all those things. Just from an ethical standpoint and from a value standpoint, we don't include any of those in the recipes. And to be fair, I have 0 recipes with any of those ingredients in it, right? So we have a holistic nutritionist that kind of builds everything. We just don't have any recipes with that. So how we do for those people is like, hey, we'll build you like a meal plan that is whole food plant based. If you feel that you like, if you think that you really need chicken, right? No, it's a thinking process. So you think you need chicken or fish or eggs, just substitute the amount of protein. Like if you have 200 calories of protein in a meal, just have 200 calories of whatever you want of fish or eggs or chicken. Just, you know, that way from a value standpoint, we don't include it in a recipe. And then for them, it's a pretty easy swap. It's like move the tofu and substitute for what, or tempeh and substitute it for the fish if you want to, or a Beyond Burger if they want to as well. So that's kind of how we get around to like having flexibility in the plan without having to go against our value, basically.
Yeah, that's one thing where even in my practice that I've kind of like not struggled with, but there's people being like, I still want to consume bits and pieces. I'm like, that's fine, but ethically, I'm not going to stick that in there for you. Like, I will allow you to play around with what you need to, and I will tell you how to swap it out if you need to, so you're still on track with what you need to do. However, like, I'm never going to give you a recipe with an egg in it. I'm never going to, even things as minuscule as honey, and like that's sometimes not an issue for some vegans. However, still a big thing. I'm just like, I'm not going to stick that in there. Like, yes, I know I'm ethically biased towards this, but I will give you the solution. I'm just not going to do it for you.
Yeah. And again, everyone gets to build their own practice however they want, right? I've had people come to me, it's like, you should do it this way. I was like, I know I don't need to do anything. I am building it the way that I want to build it. And there's other people that I'm sure will meet exactly your criteria. So I'm like, we're wildly successful beyond what I ever could have imagined having created. So I don't need to bend my values to continue to stay in business. Like, we're good. So we do things this way because it works. It aligns with our value. It helps everyone's health. So yeah, like at the beginning, I was like, maybe if we bend, because you know, when you start off, you're like, I need to make this work. And now I don't need to. It's like, we're good. I'm like, we don't do this. Here's why, right? And if you're so stuck on doing it in a way that doesn't align with what we preach in terms of value, which we're trying to be very upfront with everyone, then we're just not the right fit, and that's okay.
Yeah, and there's always going to be someone else out there if you are not the right fit for them. Like, they can go somewhere else, or they can kind of jump on it.
Yeah, there's billions of people out there. We live in an era where we can reach. We have clients from 20 different countries. I never would have been able to reach those people if it wasn't for online and social media and podcasts. So someone in the United States doesn't want to work with us because we're whole food plant based, and there's a ton of other coaches that'll tell you to eat chicken. You know, go for it.
How does that work for other countries? Because I know personally with some of the people that I've worked with that I don't know their regions well enough to know what they can and what they can't get. Like, I know there's not food scarcity, but I know, for instance, me in comparison to Norway have very different food cultures. And how are you creating a meal plan that works for a country that may not have the same accessibility to food as, let's say, the States, where you can walk into a shop and find something very easily, like your tempeh, for instance, whereas Norway might not be as easy to find.
Yeah, that like 100%. Like the main thing we found is tempeh to be the hardest to find if you're like starting to be into like some other countries. Tofu would be the second one that tends to be hardest to find for some people, but there's always a way to kind of make it work. If they don't have tofu and tempeh, then we'll just play around more with like edamame, beans, chickpeas, and all those things. So we'll modify to what they have access to. And we've been doing this for almost 5 years now. So we have a wide range of variety. We work with people in like India and Greece and like France and Switzerland and Germany and Bali and Australia. So we've just built a large repertoire of recipes throughout the years. Like, hey, clients will be like, hey, it would be cool if you had a dish like this. And then we'll just go and create a recipe for it, figure out the macros for it, and just kind of go from there. But like the longer you're in business, the more you accumulate assets that you've built. So we just have like over 1,000 plus recipes that we can get to use and modify to kind of make it work for people. But for sure, tempeh tends to be the hardest one for people that are like outside of like United States and Canada.
Yeah, that is someone I had once was in Norway, and it was one of those seasons where like a lot of foods didn't grow. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be a tough one, and it was. And then I was like, tempeh, and they were like, can't get that, and I was like, great. Tofu, nope. I was like, okay, we're really going to be playing around with the foods that you have available. But it was a learning curve as well at the same time. It's always nice to see, because I think sometimes we can get stuck in our own bubbles of our own countries, being like, this is this. The rest of the world probably has that. Instead of we're not really integrating and thinking of like other regions, which is it's nice to see that these things are happening for other countries.
Yeah, and I guess that's why I brought in a full-time holistic nutritionist so she can like navigate all of that basically. Because I'll be honest, it was a headache for me to do at first, and I was like, "No, we'll just bring in an expert that will just do that." Basically.
I love that, because the thing is, with that, you're also creating sustainable change for everyone as well, which is great. Because then you're reducing that risk of like things like chronic disease and preventative health strategies. Like if you are able to allow everybody to have access, they're going to be less susceptible to things like chronic disease, because obviously we have the research there as well, which is very much whole food, plant-based is, or if somebody's not going to go that way, a largely plant-centered diet that's based around Mediterranean, I would say, would be the healthier out there than what we are doing. So letting people reduce chronic disease as the best they can do.
Yeah, and again, it's available for everyone. Like the only, I've seen a lot of those documentaries and a lot of those premieres. Like, what about people that live up north where everything is frozen? I'm like, yeah, it's a bit different for them. Like, they're not gonna pay like $50 for a bunch of kale. Like, that's a different scenario. But the majority of people don't live there. So if you have access to like a proper grocery store and it's not like $50 for a bunch of kale, you're pretty good to eat plant-based as much as possible.
Also, you're not going into like the Amazon rainforest and finding a tribe and being like, hey, you should be eating this.
Yeah, we're gonna build a Whole Foods right here.
It's not like we're going into these places and trying to change the perception of places that literally can't do it. Like, it's the people that have access to these things, like in the States, in the UK, like we have access to these things, whereas like people that are eating whale flubber in like Greenland, they don't have the access to that. But I'm also not trying to change them either.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's just some people are just looking to argue online anyways when they bring that up. I was like, you want to eat like that? Go live there. Leave Los Angeles. Go live in Greenland.
I think one of the big things that people do get confused on at the moment is body recomposition. That's a huge thing at the moment, because I think for a long time it's been like, hey, we just need to lose weight, and then after you lost weight, build the muscle. Whereas people don't realize they can do both of those things at the same time. But I would say that's still relatively newer or a newer term to a lot of people.
Yeah. So, all right, let me get geeky with you on this. So, a lot of people think that you can convert fat to muscle when we talk about, so body recomposition, we'll just put it this way. There's two variables, fat and muscle. So the goal is to increase muscle and decrease fat. Basically what body recomposition is. Because you can do body recomposition in a negative way. So lose muscle and put on fat. All right. That's technically still a body recomposition, but I don't think most people want that. So if the goal is to put on muscle and lose body fat, how do we do that? Well, first of all, the fat does not convert to muscle tissue, right? You will burn the fat and you will build more muscle tissue on top of the lean muscle tissue that you have now. It's just one thing to understand for people. Now, you can do both at the same time, but it's slow. Like it's real slow, basically. It's probably the slowest way you can do it. What we focus on is we do what we call a body recomposition phase, so a pure fat loss phase. So when you want to lose excess body fat to reveal the cool things that are under, you want to strength train and structure your nutrition in such a way that you're going to retain as much lean muscle mass as possible and potentially put on a little bit while you're in that phase and just focus on purely losing fat. So now if you think of putting on a ton of muscle at the same time and losing a ton of fat at the same time, you're on PEDs, you're on steroids, you're something like, as a natural person looking to improve body composition, you're not going to put on 10 pounds of muscle and lose 20, 30 pounds of fat within a short period of time unless you're injecting yourself with something. So as a natural person, you want to retain as much muscle as possible and potentially put on a little bit while we're losing fat. And then we want to do a lean muscle building phase after, right? We want to do something called reverse dieting to speed up the metabolism first and then do a lean muscle building after. So when I tell people, if you're trying to lose fat and build muscle at the same time, losing fat is like turning left when you're driving and building muscle is like turning right. Try to do both at the same time the next time you drive. You're going to go in a straight line, right? So you'll make some progress, but you're not going to be heading in either direction. So it's much better to focus on like purely fat loss and then lean muscle building, which again, you're going to put on a little bit of muscle when you're going through a body recomposition phase, and then do a pure lean muscle building because they both require different environments in order to accomplish those outcomes basically. But yeah, to see like a 10 pound of muscle and 20 pounds of fat loss, like, yeah, you're injecting yourself with something at that point.
I think there's definitely a common misconception as well, but it's like when people do go and try to lose weight, but they are also building muscle at the same time while working out and dieting, and the scale may go up at the same time. And I think that really puts people off, but I don't think people realize that obviously, muscle does weigh more than fat. So if you are building muscle and you are losing fat and nothing changes, it is still progress.
Yeah, this because you are shifting your body composition favorably, right? You're increasing the variable of muscle on the body. And to be fair, if you're completely new to exercising, you're going to put on way more muscle mass during a fat loss phase because the muscle is not used to that stress. So it's called beginner gains. So you put on if I was to do a body recomp now and someone that's never really exercised before, they're going to put on way more muscle than me. I've been working out for 18 years. Like I'm not going to get those fun gains that I got at the beginning when I started. So that person will see a drastic increase, but eventually it kind of slows down because your body is used to the stressor. And I was going to say, are you using the video for this interview or just the audio?
I'm using the video.
Video, okay. Let me just grab something real quick. I'll show what 5 pounds of fat looks like so you can see how much it is. All right, so this is 5 pounds of fat. I
just love the fact that you have a 5 pounds of fat at the back of your room.
I got 20 pounds of fat. I bought 4 of them for a video. And to be fair, I thought I could return them on Amazon after. And I paid like $400 for those. And then I went to return them and it said, you can't return them. I was like, shit, I'm stuck with 20 pounds of fat. So I got 20 pounds of fat laying around my house. But this is massive. And again, I don't have the muscle one, but if you were to 5 pounds of muscle is pretty small. I have this little thing here, but it would be half of this black thing, basically. That would be a difference in size between muscle and fat. And on the scale, if you were to lose 5 pounds of fat and put on 5 pounds of muscle, it would show a 0 pound difference. And you'd be like, damn, I'm not making progression. Like, nah, you've put on a good amount of muscle. And just for context for people, you can lose about 0.5 pounds to 1 pound a week. Like, that's a sustainable rate of fat loss when it comes to proper shift in body composition. Because the faster you lose fat, the more muscle you lose with it. That's why we like to go slow. So let's just say in a year, you can lose like 26 to 52 plus pounds, roughly, right? If you're more compliant and your metabolism is high, whatever, I had people lose 80 pounds in a year. So just as a range. If you want to put on 10 to 15 pounds of muscle, that'll take you a year, 12 months of pure muscle, 10, 15 pounds. It'll take you a year. It's so much slower to put on muscle.
Yeah, I think people don't realize that, especially when they see like an Instagram reel, 30 seconds, and people assume that this is such an easy thing to do. And it is taking time, spending time in the gym, working out exactly what you're meant to be doing, what muscles do, what exercises do, what muscle, and like you're not going to just build that overnight. You're not going to have an overnight six pack. You're not going to look as jacked as Chris Hemsworth, for instance, in the space of a year, because once again, that is, a ton of muscle building.
Just years of decades of training, for
Yeah.
Chris to be that big, he's been fit his whole life. It's, that's why I don't really do, like, I used to do shirtless photos on Instagram, and now I feel weird being shirtless, but they're like shirtless photos on Instagram. But like, I work with people that are 50 all the way up to 86 years old. Like, our average client is 64-year-old woman. So I'm a 32-year-old guy that's in shape. Like, what does it change? Like, they're not going to be like, oh yeah, I want to be fit like Maxime. I'm 32. You're 60. Like, this is not the same game at this point. So that's why I'm trying to interview our clients that are older to kind of show people. So I'm saying, like, if you're someone watching those videos on Instagram and the kid's like 10 years younger than you, and that's all he does all day, he doesn't have a family and a business to run. Like, oh yeah, remember when you were 10 years younger and you had all this free time to exercise? It's a different ballgame at that point. So just look at people that are in your position that are doing it. You'll see that they have a very different approach.
I wish I had that much time to exercise still. Like, that would be the dream. I think as well, we do live in a society where, people that scale, and the number on the scale is purely to lose weight and measure fat and obesity and BMI and things like that. We see a scale as a bad thing. We don't see it as progress. We see it as, this is bad. We weigh this much. We need to get down to this. But we don't see it as, this beautiful thing where we can see this like progress. It's not going to be linear. It's going to be up and down always. But at the end, you're actually going to have the result you want. Instead, we kind of see it as this kind of, oh, I need to stand on here just to see how much weight I've lost, and feel like really down about it. There's nothing, people don't feel happy about going and standing on that because it's got such a bad connotation alongside it.
I can solve all that in one go. So people need to focus on another metric than the weight that's on the scale, and that's body fat percentage. Because the lower your body fat, theoretically, that's because the amount of fat on your body went down if your body fat percentage is lower, right? So if you just focus on the body fat, then it's a like pretty accurate representation of if you're actually improving your body composition. So the number, like you said, the number on the scale will go up and down. And to be fair, it's just one point of data out of everything. Like, we get people weigh themselves, they do their body fat, they do measurements, they do photos. So when, as a coach, we look at how they're progressing, oh, the scale didn't move. Oh, body fat dropped 1%. Oh, measurements are smaller. Oh, the body looks tighter. The number on the scale is irrelevant. It's just one piece of information of the whole. It's a pixel of the whole picture. So it's not the representation of how everything is going. So body fat, way more fun of a stat to look at.
Yeah, I think people they kind of overlook as well the fact that, like, as you just said, body fat percentage, and also how you feel in yourself, because although it may have not changed, and that may be due to like water retention, or the fact that you haven't gone to the toilet this morning, or anything like that you don't see. But like, if you can look in a mirror and see that something's changed as well, and a lot of people can after like a few months, and like, there's progress there, and like one day that's, you may be like a tiny bit heavier, or nothing has changed, that hasn't ruined anything there. Like, we need to look at it long term as well. But I think we do live in a society where short term health outcomes are seen as the better option than long term.
Well, people are impatient. That's why Ozempic's so popular. All right.
Yeah.
Impatient.
Ozempic is that's one of those very new topics that it's been a hard one to speak about because I still don't know. Like I understand for like some people that like really struggle, like it's
Yeah.
great and it's going to help them. However, I don't know the long-term health outcomes on those things because I don't
There's
think
been a
we've
lot of
got the
pretty
data for
negative
that
side
as well.
effects.
Yeah.
Yeah, I live in LA, man. It's everywhere. So there's a lot of negative side effects to it. You've seen and again, people could just Google out some of that, like some kidney issues and some of those things. There's a thing called Ozempic face. You heard of that?
I've seen Ozempic face.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like when people, like for people listening, when you lose weight too fast and the elasticity in your skin doesn't have a chance to catch up to how much weight you've lost and just have like a saggy face, basically. And like you said, for some people, it's like life or death. You got to lose weight now. Like phenomenal thing. But you're just trying to like drop 20. You're you're a little bit overweight, not super. You got to drop 20 pounds. Like you just need to learn to develop healthier habits with food because you can't keep injecting yourself with that for the rest of your life. Because first, it's expensive. Second, there's health consequences taking that for the rest of your life. So at the end of the day, like the real work still needs to be done regardless of whatever pill injection they take. A lot of people have a really bad relationship with themselves and have a really bad relationship with food. And regardless of what they do, nothing will solve it until they deal with that, basically.
Mm. Is that one thing that you do teach people to do is build a healthier relationship with food? So I think that's one thing. That's one thing that gets so overlooked with a lot of coaches is the fact that like you're not sorting the root of the issue. They're kind of like, hey, you can just kind of eat this, it'd be fine for like 6 months. However, the root's not fixed.
That's what bothers me with a lot of coaches out there. So listen, everyone can shut off their social life and their life and go real hard for like a few months to like get great results. And then coaches will be like, look at this cool before and after that I got of this client. I do podcasts with those people for an hour and then I do follow-ups with them 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year. And now I'll be able to do 5 years because it'll be 5 years in business. Like these people keep the weight off. Like the point is not to have a cool after photo. The point is to have an after photo, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, 10 years after. Right. And you don't get that unless you learn to address the underlying issue. Coaching is just mindset and psychology, right? Like, give the plan, give the training. Great. It's not going to solve anything if you have a bad relationship with food because you're not going to stick to the plan. So we need to figure out why you start to stick to the plan. Are you rebellious towards structure? Do you have an addiction to sugar? Do you have a bad relationship with yourself, which has caused you to subconsciously sabotage because of things that happened before? Like, that's what coaching is. Because if you had a good relationship with food, you can get in shape real quick without a coach. Like if you just had like the proper structure and ratios and you did your training, you get in great shape, without a coach or minimal support. But if people are really struggling with their weight and fat loss, there's always an underlying issue. Like very rarely will we ever have someone come in and be like, I love myself and I have no issue with food. Usually someone has to like deal with something somewhere. And I've been there too. Like I get it, man. I used to hate myself. I guess I ate donuts out of trash can, had binge eating issues. Like I'm not making fun of those people because I used to be those people. I did the work to get out of it. So like I 100% get it. It's tough to get out of it, but it's beautiful once you're on the flip side.
Have very much the same kind of experiences, not eating donuts out of trash cans, but similar.
It was my own trash can, by the way, just for people.
But it's one of those things that like once you develop those skills, you can look back and that's how you can help people as well because you have been that person. So if you have been through that yourself, you can think like you can at least be in the same-ish mindset that this person's in to help them. Be like, I've been through this. Like I know exactly what you're going through, and it's tough, but there is ways around it because look, you've seen yourself, you've seen whoever, and these things. You can get out of these situations, but we just need to find the actual root cause.
Yeah. And it's painful and it's uncomfortable. And most people don't think that it's a part of the transformational journey. They think it's just about getting a meal plan and a workout program. And again, some people just, they program jump. They jump from program to program. Like, they don't work. They don't work. They don't work. They don't work. I'm like, have you ever stuck to any of them? Right? Like, to be fair, you could eat meat and do keto and work out and get in great shape. Now, is it healthy and sustainable for you? No. But could you get in great shape? Absolutely, if there was compliance. If there's compliance to any form of plan that puts you in a calorie deficit and you're exercising, you will see results. But most people don't have that compliance because of this underlying issue, right? And to be fair, like I was just talking to someone about this today, it's shitty to do a fat loss phase, right? I compare it to money because money and fat loss to me are very similar. So if you're 40 pounds overweight, that's like being $40,000 in debt, right? You're $40,000 in debt, you know it's there. You see the red in your bank account. You can't just like ignore it, right? Like you know that there's 40 pounds around your body and you're like, you can't really ignore. You have to live with it every day. You can ignore for a while, but eventually you're like, all right, this bugs me. I need to pay this. I need to pay this debt off. I need to lose this 40 pounds. What do you have to do? You have to go on a budget. You have to spend less than you're making so you can grab that balance and put it towards the debt. So being 40 pounds overweight means that you overate. Being 40K in debt means that you overspend. Both the same thing. You want to pay off both of them, you have to be on a budget. Being on a budget sucks. All right. It sucks to be on a budget. It's much better to overeat and overspend. I would like it too. Right. But we can't do that if we want to be in a good position in the future to be healthy and to be financially stable. So people hate being on a budget. They feel that it's restrictive. But shit, you had your fun. You spent an extra 40K you didn't have to do fun things, I'm sure. You overate to have a good time. Now it's just eventually you have to pay that back. And, some people don't pay it back. And that's why they end up passing away, right? They end up passing away because of all this debt. They can't afford to live. They can't afford the medication that they need because they're unhealthy. And they've dug themselves in a deeper hole. So fat loss is the same thing as budgeting if you have a debt. You just have to take one moment, just get yourself together, pay it off, develop healthy spending habits and eating habits. And then just once you get out of it, it's a beautiful life to be debt free and to be weight free.
So speaking of fat loss, if somebody has gone for a fat loss phase but hasn't done like the body recomposition, and then they have ended up skinny fat, and that is like they've made amazing progress, but they just aren't happy still. There's something that still isn't right. How does somebody fix that skinny fat phase that they're in? And also probably what is skinny fat?
Yeah, so skinny fat is you have, man or woman, you have a t-shirt on or a dress and you look skinny. Like if you tell people you have weight to loss, they're like, oh, stop it. You're skinny. You look great. But then when you're in a bathing suit, they're like, oh, I see what you mean. Like you fat with a bathing suit and then skinny with clothes on, basically. To be fair, I was like that before. So there's two paths, right? You can go straight into a muscle building phase. Typically, more men would be interested in that one in terms of like getting bigger, putting on more muscle. The issue when you do a muscle building phase is always a little bit of body fat that comes with it. So you're just going to have more fat on your body as you put on more muscle. So my personal preference, because I like being lean so much better, is just focus on losing the fat first, right? And again, you're going to be strength training and putting on a little bit of muscle with it. Again, not a significant amount because that's not the goal of that phase. Again, we're turning left when we're driving. We can only do one thing at a time. You're going to put on a little bit, but get lean, get a tight body that you feel comfortable in. Once you're there, then do a lean muscle building phase. Then focus on putting on some muscle because again, a little bit of body fat will come with that. But if you're lean enough, it won't show too much. And now you get to feel comfortable in your body and your body's still going to be able to be agile, right? And you're still going to be able to feel good. So that's my recommendation. Get lean first and then put on a more muscle after.
And they can fix this by reverse dieting.
So reverse dieting would be the middle between the two of them. So fat loss would be the first phase. And then, so fat loss, basically you go from wherever your calories are at and you slowly lower your calorie until you've lost the weight that you want to. Obviously you're trying to go as you want to keep the food as high as possible the whole way through. And once you're there, you do reverse dieting, which is like a 4-month process to speed up your metabolism. So going from wherever you ended your fat loss back up to maintenance. Because if you make that jump in one go, typically there's going to be a higher gain of fat that happens during that time. But if you slowly increase over time, there's a less fat basically to have. It's like the worst we've seen throughout the 1,000 people is like a pound or a pound and a half gain over adding 800 to 1,000 additional calories of doing it. Once you're at maintenance, then go into a lean muscle building phase. The analogy I like to use for that is like if you go camping and you have a fire, and you have a small flame, that's your metabolism at the end of a fat loss phase, right? Like it's normal. You're slowly eating less food. You're doing more exercise. Metabolism slows down. Part of the adaptation and survival process of the human body. So how do you make a small flame bigger? Well, you can throw a big log of wood on it, but it's probably going to put it out, and it's going to take a while before that little flame can grow to be able to handle it. And that's what people do at the end of a fat loss phase. They just go like, oh yes, party, I'm done this thing. And then they just go back to eating more food. And then 6 months, a year after, they put all the weight back on. They're like, what happened? I was so lean 6 months ago. Well, how you make a small flame bigger more efficiently, and it's the same thing when you go camping, you throw smaller pieces of wood on it over time, right? And that flame is going to grow. And eventually you have a raging fire. So that's going to be you increasing your metabolism slowly. So we do that over the course of 4 months for reverse dieting. Did anything faster than that, we saw a higher rate gain of fat loss. And once you're there, then you go into a lean muscle building phase, basically. At least that's how we've been doing it for all our members.
Yeah, I think that's what people have been very confused on, is when it does come to, you know, body recomposition, or like they've lost, they've got skinny fat, and then how to then gain back. But I think the word dieting has kind of scared people off at some point, and they were kind of like, hey, I'm just not going to do anything, and I'm just going to stay the way I am now because I don't really understand the intricacies of what reverse dieting is, I guess.
Yeah, shit. Change dieting for budgeting, because it's the same thing.
I think for some people, they assume, and I would say this as well, seeing that I've seen other coaches online that are plant-based or are vegan, saying that you can't get ripped or look good on a whole foods plant-based diet. You need to be adding, you know, your satans, your beyonds, your other things, and it's impossible to do on a whole foods plant-based diet. And I'm guessing
I got photo proofs. I'm one of the proofs. Yeah, I'm one of the proofs, but I got several hundred photos of people that we've gotten ripped. Obviously, I'll be upfront, those people were younger, just because when you get into the 60 to 70 range, the skin elasticity doesn't catch up to the same level. So it's harder to have like a ripped look when the elasticity of the skin is not as what it was when it was 20 or 30. But we have tons of people that got ripped on a whole food plant-based lifestyle. Like, it's 100% doable. It's just, to be fair, I know 99% of those coaches. I've met pretty much all of them. And again, I'm in this space because of the health component of it, and I want to be able to get people to that place. And to them, they're more, I'm very niche. They're very mass market. Like, if you can get people to be okay with like vegan meats and stuff, you'll get more people coming into their coaching practice, which is fair enough. They're doing their thing. I just didn't want to compromise on my value to like access more people. So they do their marketing. But I have so many photos. I've done it. I have hundreds of photos of people that have done it on a whole food plant base. Yeah, it's doable.
Yeah, myself, I'm very much whole foods plant based, and like I've had those results myself. Like, I know it's possible, and I think when you do see other people out there being like, you just can't do it, I'm like, but how do you explain people that have done it? It's like there's people like you that ripped as hell, muscular, and eating whole food plant based, and like I just kind of like there's a bit more to take into consideration when it comes to like, you know, carbs and, you know, fats and like proteins. But like once you have that all kind of like, you know, pinned down, it's absolutely doable.
It's doable, and no one should do it. I'm gonna be upfront with you. Like, being shredded sucks. Like, you're hungry, you have low energy, you sleep well, your sex drive is low, you don't have a lot of strength, you don't have a lot of stamina. I hate being shredded so much. I like having, like how I'm at right now, a little bit more body fat on me. Oh, so much happier. I'm a much better person and more patient.
Yeah, there's I think the ideal for a lot of people is to have a six pack, and as soon as you get there, you realize that you then have to maintain that for like the rest of your time, and it's an unhappy lifestyle. I really like you still want to be able to eat. You don't want to have to constantly be worrying that, you know, is this going to go if I do this wrong? And it's such a strict regime that people put themselves into.
You have one salty meal and like gone, right? Man, like I'm at about like 9.7, 10% right now. I've been 4%. Oh, You can pay me to go that low again. Oh, I was terrible. 10%. I can go have vegan sushi with my wife. I can have some vegan wafers from time to time and just enjoy ourselves, travel. We're just on a cruise for a whole week. Like, you can enjoy your life, be healthy, be fit, have energy, have strength. And then it's in better shape than, 99% of the world still at that body fat percentage. You don't need to go down to like the stupidly low levels.
I think the one thing that also does stand you out is that you also work with blood results.
Yeah, with Dr. Laurie.
Yeah. A lot of coaches don't work with blood, so you're actually getting like the really in-depth information about these people.
Yeah, and we can see if there's any deficiencies. We can address some of it with the nutrition, and sometimes some people need to go on some, medication because they didn't know they had certain health issues because most people don't test. So yeah, adding Dr. Laura to the team was like a big plus for sure. We did like over 2 years ago, I think. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, I was going to say, is this one of these times where someone gets their blood test back and they're like, oh, I'm finding out something about myself that I didn't know I had, or there was something undiagnosed that like has just been running rampant in their body without actually knowing about it.
Yeah, we haven't had anything like that. We've had some people like, if you're deficient in like potentially like some B12 or some iron or something like that, but we haven't had any like, big discoveries that would be like, oh shit, like you're actually really sick and you shouldn't be doing this. Because I feel like the people that, because of how we've built our brand, like people are somewhat health conscious when they come to us. And because of like that 50 to 86 age group, like they're more health conscious and health aware that they do get consistent blood work. So we haven't had any like big surprises like that. But if I used to work with 20 to 30-year-olds, and these guys had no idea what was happening. They're still in the mindset of being invincible.
I think that also like obviously really allows you to kind of prioritize, certain aspects of somebody's individual nutrition instead of like that cookie cutter approach or just having a few different random meals, because obviously there's no cookie cutter approach that's going to fit everybody and everybody's so individual. But then you can potentially, see those deficiencies and then isolate more nutrients to go alongside that dietary plan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's why we have the custom nutrition, right? We have a platform that we use where we can isolate certain nutrients and have kind of filter out some of our recipes that contain more of those nutrients in it. So it makes it easier. Again, like you said, the longer you've been in business, the more you build assets. So it's easier to kind of have some cool shit. But at the beginning, it wasn't like that. Where it was rough.
Yeah, I can imagine, but especially when you're building it from scratch, at these things are just, it's creating a database full of like, the very individual needs.
Yeah.
But before we do round this off, there is one question that I actually used to ask everybody. It kind of phased out. However, I feel like you're probably the perfect person to ask. Is that, when you are feeling lazy, when you are feeling, you don't have the energy, but you still want to cook something very nutritious, you want something healthy still inside you, what is your quick and easy kind of lazy healthy meal?
Yeah, dude, I got this big air fryer and it has 2 compartments to it. So my go-to is that's how lazy it is. I won't even pull out the cutting board for it. I'll open the pack of tofu and then I'll cut with the knife the tofu into cubes inside the pack, and I'll put it in the air fryer, and then I'll throw a sweet potato on the other side and some frozen green beans. I'll shove it in there for 20 minutes, and then some nutritional yeast on top of it, and that's it. I can go sit on the couch for 20 minutes and then done. That's it.
Such an easy, accessible meal. It's weird, like the different people that I've asked, so many different results, and like some of these people are such healthy people, and then that quick and easy meal, I'm like, wow, that's not what I expected it to be. But yours is exactly how I expected it to be.
Yeah, it's healthy. I can sit down for 20 minutes, go watch YouTube or something, and then just, yeah. People make it too complex. Like shit, that meal took me a minute and a half to put in the air fryer, not even, and then just 20 minutes of talking to my wife or doing something else, and then bam, it's done.
Yeah, simplicity is key. I think the best things come out of simplicity.
Yeah. And the most successful people focus on simplicity. The people that have the most success in their transformation and their business and everything else, they focus on a few core things.
Maxim, it's been an absolute pleasure. Where can people find you if they want to work with you, if they want to, find out more about you, if they just want to follow your journey? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so 2 websites. I would say fitvegancoaching.com. That's to kind of apply to work with us, because we filter everyone that comes in, just because we guarantee all of our transformation. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that like you're in a good spot to actually do it. Because some people are like, yeah, I can't squat or do push-ups or walk or run. I'm like, well, it'll be pretty tough, right? It'll maybe take a little bit longer. And then if people go to fitvegan.com, the YouTube channel is there, the podcast is there, which I'd love to have you on as well. Instagram, all that fun stuff is on that website.
Amazing. Maxime, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm grateful for you.
Same here, man. Thank you very much for having me. And yeah, hope people got some value from it. I always like to end podcasts that I do with this one little lesson for people. You and I shared a lot of valuable things inside of this recording. And I always like to be upfront with people that none of the information that was shared will change anyone's life. It won't do shit for your life. You're not going to get fitter. You're not going to get healthier out of everything that you shared. You're only going to get that if you implement on some of the information that we talked about. I always invite people to pick one thing and then implement that at least they can start building momentum towards the things that they want. If not, they just have a lot of head knowledge and no body knowledge. And they know that they know a lot of stuff, but they don't look like they know a lot of stuff.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.